Bugungi darsimizda Cambridge 11 test 4 sections 3 analizini ko'rib chiqamiz. O'z ko'rganingizdek qismda sections 3 questions 21 to 30, questions 21 to 22, two letters A to E, which two characteristics were shared by the subjects of Joanna's psychology study. Ko'ramiz qaysi xarakteristikalarni. That all prized for their music, all won prizes, made music recordings under 27, toured internationally, is string instrument. Ko'ramiz. 2 points does Joanna make about her use of telephone interviews. 2 points. Rich data could be collected. Involvement of top performance. Stressful atmosphere at times. Interview times had to be limited. Some technical problems. 2 topics that Joanna originally intended to investigate. Originally keyword. Boshdan shunaqa harakat qilganim, plan qilganim, lekin unaqa o'xshamadi deyishim mumkin. Regulations concerning concert dress, audience reaction to the dress of performance. Demak. Concert dress o'zi umumiy informatsiya o'tda. Regulations keyword, audience reaction keyword, changes in performer attitude keyword, performer roles keyword, link between instruments and dress choice keyword. Sal qiyinroq ekan, lekin bajarishga harakat qilamiz. Anchagina qiyin, sal emas. Nima qilish kerak? O'qib olinglar. Hozir men sizlarga vaqt beraman. O'qib savollarni masalan, ko'pchilik odam javob beraman, attitude degan javob bilmaydi. So'zni bilmaydi masalan. Regulation bilmasligi mumkin. Masalan, shu so'zni bilmasliklari mumkin. Iltimos tarjima qilib olinglar. Tarjima qilmasanglar baraka topmaymiz baribir. Bajarganlarimiz hech narsa qilmaydi. Shuning uchun ham topib oling, o'qib oling, harakat qilib oling. Boshlaymiz, davom etamiz, boshlaymiz, ko'ramiz.
Our toilets on it. Please do that now and
to check your called Joanna talking to her new supervisor about some research she has done on psychology and music. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 26.
Vaqt berdi bizga.
21 to 26.
Ketdik.
Hi, Joanna. Good to meet you. Now, before we discuss your new research project, I'd like to hear something about the psychology study you did last year for your master's degree. So, how did you choose your subjects for that?
Well, I had 6 subjects, all professional musicians and all female. 3 were violinists, and there was also a cello player and a pianist and a flute player. They were all very highly regarded in the music world, and they'd done quite extensive tours in different continents, and quite a few had won prizes and competitions as well.
And they were quite young, weren't they?
Yes, between 25 and 29. The mean was 27.8. I wasn't specifically looking for artists who'd produced recordings, but this is something that's just taken for granted these days, and they all had.
Right.
They all had. Xo'p, nima bo'ldi? Sen o'zingni telefon, o'zingni proyekting haqida gapirishdan oldin, men psychology studylaring haqida gapirishga qolayman. Subjectlaring nechta? Nima bo'ldi? 6 ta subjectim bor dedi-da, plus nima dedi? 6 tasidan 3 tasi string instrument dedimi? Qisqasi hammasi string instrument emas, u yerda piano bor, flute bor, yechib ketdi. 25 dan 29 gacha, o'rtasi 27.5 bo'lgan, shuning uchun ham yechib ketdi. Bir nechtasi quite a few won prizes dedi, bir nechtasi prize qilgan, hammasi emas, yechib ketdi. Music recording taking it for granted hamma olyapti, shuning uchun ham recording hammasi bor edi, international extensive tourlar qilganda, shuning uchun ham javob B bilan D bo'ladi. O'qiymiz. How to choose your subjects? They had 6 subjects, all professional musicians, all females, 3 were violinists, there was also cello player, pianist and flute player. O'zing ko'rganingda string instrument, struna, ya'ni simli instrument emas hammasi. Bo'ldi, tamom, uxladi. Javob uxladi, javob uxladi, keyingisi. They were all highly regarded in the music world. They have done quite extensive tours in different continents. Turli xil kontinentda extensive tourlar qilgan. Shuning uchun ham javob bu qismda international bo'ladi. Keyingisiga o'tamiz. Quite a few had won prize and competitions. Demak, bir nechtasi prize va competition won qilgan, o'sha uchun ham A javob chiqib ketdi. Between 25-29 demak bu C chiqib ketdi. And I wasn't specifically looking for artists who had produced recordings, but something that's just taken for granted these days. They all had. Demak, unda recordinglari bor. Shuning uchun ham B javob bo'ladi. D bilan B javob bo'ladi. Keyingisiga o'tamiz.
Now, you collected your data through telephone interviews, didn't you?
Yes. I realised if I was going to interview leading musicians, it'd only be possible over the phone because they're so busy. I recorded them using a telephone recording adapter. I'd been worried about the quality, but it worked out all right. I managed at least a 30-minute interview with each subject, sometimes longer.
Did doing it on the phone make it more stressful?
I thought it might. It was all quite informal though, and in fact they seemed very keen to talk. And I don't think using the phone meant I got less rich data. Rather the opposite, in fact.
Interesting. And you were looking at how...
O'z ko'rganingizdek, nima bo'ldi dedi, telefon intervyular. Demak, telefon intervyular top performerlarni olaman desam, telefon intervyu bo'lishi kerak, chunki vaqti yo'q dedi. B bo'ldi. Rich datani collect qildim dedi. A bo'ldi. Stress atmosfera bo'lishini kutgandim, lekin hammasi informal, hammasi gaplashish dedi. C chiqib ketdi. Limited bo'lmadi, 30 minutgacha gaplashdim dedi. D chiqib ketdi. Technical problem bo'ladi, quality bilan muammo bo'ladi deb o'ylagandim, lekin unaqa bo'lmadi dedi. E ham chiqib ketdi. O'qiymiz. I realized that if I was going to interview leading musicians, it would only be possible over the phone because they are so busy. Javob B. Record using the telephone recording adapter. Worried about the quality. It worked out all right. 30 minutes of interview with each subject, sometimes longer. Demak, javob chiqib ketdi. Mana limited chiqib ketdi, chunki 30 minut normalniy, technical problem chiqib ketdi, chunki voice bilan muammo bo'lmagan. Stressful bo'ldimi? I thought it went quite informal, seemed very keen to talk. Stress bo'lmadi. E plus, I don't think using phone meant I got less rich data. Rather than opposite in the fact. Opposite in the fact degani rich datani oldim degan javob. A bilan B bo'lishini sabablari shu. O'qib olinglar, tarjima qilib olinglar.
How performers dress for concert performances?
That's right. My research investigated the way players see their role as a musician and how this is linked to the type of clothing they decide to wear. But that focus didn't emerge immediately. When I started, I was more interested in trying to investigate the impact of what was worn on those listening, and also whether someone like a violinist might adopt a different style of clothing from, say, someone playing the flute or the trumpet.
It's interesting that the choice of dress is up to the individual, isn't it?
Yes. You'd expect there to be rules about it in orchestras, but that's quite rare.
O'z ko'rganingizdek, nima bo'ldi? Boshlanishda nima dedi? O'sha performer rollariga dressni research qildim, lekin men original intent qilmagandim bunda. Men listenerlarga anosini reaksiyasini ko'rmoqchi edim. Plus qanaqa qilib link between instrument bilan dress choice ko'rmoqchi edim dedi. B bilan E bo'ldi javob. Regulation bo'lishi kerak, lekin regulation yo'q dedi. Ha, men regulation bo'ladi deb o'ylagandim. Javob A chiqib ketdi. C chiqib ketdi. Yo'q, C ni o'zi yo'q. My research investigates the way players see their role as a musician, how it's linked to their type of clothing they decided where the job E, but it wasn't the focus. That focus didn't emerge immediately degani bu doim originally yo'qdi menda degani, o'sha uchun ham javob D chiqib ketdi. When I started, I was more interested in trying to investigate the impact of what was worn to those listening. Auditoriyaga impacti javob demak B bo'ldi. And also whether someone like a violinist might adopt a different style of clothing from, say, someone playing flute or a trumpet. Javob E bo'ladi. Masalan, link between a musical instrument and dress choice. Choice up to individual, rules about orchestras, but it's quite rare. Javob A chiqib ketdi, lekin original intent qilmagan. Shuning uchun ham javob B bilan E bo'ladi. Qiyin, lekin urinishlang kerak, harakat qilishlang kerak. Bo'lmasa harakat qilmasanglar yaxshi bo'lmaydi. Harakat topmaymiz. Xo'p, choose letters questions 27 to 30, ABC multiple choice questions. Joanna concentrate on women performers because nima uchun ayollarda konsentratsiya qilgan? Women are more influenced by fashion. Dress has led to more controversy. Controversyga sabab bo'lgan. Is less strict than men. Less strict. Code of dress is less strict than men. O'qib chiqishlang kerak. Controversy degani shov-shuv, urush, janjal, to'polon, shunaqa narsa. Mike Frost's article suggests that in popular music, women's dress is affected by popular musicda ayollarni adressi nima bilan affect qilgan. Their wish to be taken seriously. Their tendency to copy each other, their reaction to the masculine nature of the music. Topamiz. O'qish kerak juda qiyin joy bu. Juda qiyin nima ma'noda qiyin? Menga qiyin emas, masalan. Sizlarga qiyin bo'ladi, chunki vocab juda ham ko'p. Bilmagan vocablar juda ham ko'p. What did Joan's subject say about the audience at the performance? Joan's subjectlari performance'dagi auditoriya haqida nima degan? Musicians choice of closing to link to the respect of the audience. Closing shouldn't distract the audience from the music. Audience should make the effort to dress appropriately. Auditoriya o'zi yaxshi kiyinish kerak degan ma'noda berishdi. According to the speakers, musicians could learn from sports scientists lardan nima haqida o'rganishi mumkin. Importance of clothing for physical freedom. Part played by clothing improving performance. The way clothing may protect against physical injury. Physical injurylarni protect qilishi mumkin. Juda ham murakkab qism bo'ladi bu sizlar uchun. Boshlaymiz. Men sizlarga ozgina vaqt beraman. Baribir o'zingizdan bilib qilmaysizlar. Agar men hozir pauza berib vaqt bermasam, o'qiymiz hozir. O'qiysizlar, tarjima qilib olasizlar. Men 1 minut pauza olaman. Okay.
To 30.
Let's go.
You only had women performers in your study. Was that because male musicians are less worried about fashion?
I think a lot of the men are very much influenced by fashion, but in social terms, the choices they have are more limited. They'd really upset audiences if they strayed away from quite narrow boundaries.
Now, popular music has quite different expectations.
Jim. Xo'p, nima uchun tanlading ayollarni? Chunki ayollar fashion bilan ko'p influence qilinadimi, ta'sirga olinadimi? Yo'q, u uchun emas. Erkaklar orasida ham fashionga mukkasi ketganlar bor, lekin erkaklarni dress kodlari stricter dedi. Why you only had performance? What? That because male musicians are less worried about fashion? I think a lot of men are very much influenced by fashion. But in social terms, their choices, the choices they have are much limited. They would be really upset. They would really upset audience if they strayed away from quite narrow boundaries. Job C.
Did you read Mike Frost's article about the dress of women performers in popular music?
No.
Well, he points out that a lot of female singers and musicians in popular music tend to dress down in performances and wear less feminine clothes, like jeans instead of skirts. And he suggests this is because otherwise they'd just be discounted as trivial.
But you could argue they're just wearing what's practical. I mean, a pop music concert is usually a pretty energetic affair.
Yes, he doesn't make that point, but I think you're probably right.
Qisqasi nima dedi? Mike Frost aytadiki, jeanslar, skirtlar kiymaydi, normal slow down qiladi, bir narsa qiladi, tone down qiladi. Chunki agar unaqa kiyinmasa, ular trivial deb e'tiborga olmaydi, taken serious qilmaydi. O'sha uchun ham ular shunaqa kiyinadi degan bo'ladi. Lekin bunaqa pop music o'zing bilgandek, quite energetic, ular harakatlanish kerak. O'shuning uchun ham bo'lsa kerak dedi. Lekin Mike Frost uni gapirmaydi dedi. O'sha uchun ham C chiqib ketdi. Qiyin. He points out that a lot of female singers and musicians in popular tend to dress down in performance and wear less feminine clothes like jeans instead of skirts. He suggests that it's because otherwise they would be just discounted as trivial. Javob ana shu. Seriously, ana qilmaydi. Serious olmaydi, qabul qilmaydi. But you could argue that they're just wearing what's practical. I mean, pop music is considered just pretty energetic affair. He doesn't make that point. To'g'ri, lekin unaqaga demaydi Mike Frost. Javob A bo'ldi.
I was interested by the effect of the audience at a musical performance when it came to the choice of dress.
The subjects I interviewed felt this was really important. It's all to do with what we understand by performance as a public event. They believed the audience had certain expectations, and it was up to them as performers to fulfill these expectations, to show a kind of esteem.
They weren't afraid of looking as if they'd made an effort to look good.
I think in the past,
Wow. Distract haqida gap bo'lgani yo'q. Yo'q bo'lmasa bo'lsa kerak. Qisqasi, qiyin gap bo'ldi. Qisqasi, musician's choice of clothing is linked to respect of audience. Auditoriyani xohishlari bor, auditoriya xohishlarini aniq qilish kerak. Qilsa yaxshi bo'lardi dedi. Fulfill qilsa dedi. Mana subjects I interviewed felt this was really important. It's all to do with that we understand by performance as a public event. They believe the audience had certain expectations. It was up to them as performers to fulfill these expectations to show a kind of esteem. Esteem and respect bo'ladi. Qismda shu javob A.
the audience would have had those expectations of one another too, but that's not really the case now. Not in the UK anyway.
No.
And I also got interested in what sports scientists are doing too with regard to clothing.
Musicians are quite vulnerable physically, aren't they? Because the movements they carry out are very intensive and repetitive. So I'd imagine some features of sports clothing could safeguard the players from the potentially dangerous effects of this sort of thing.
Yes, but musicians don't really consider it. They avoid clothing that obviously restricts their movements, but that's as far as they go.
Anyway, coming back to your own research, do you have any...
Shut up. C bo'ladi. Nimaga? O'qiymiz. Musicians are quite vulnerable physically, aren't they? Because the movements they carry are very intensive and repetitive. I would imagine some features of sports clothing could safeguard the players, protect the players from the potentially dangerous effects of the sort of thing. Demak, hisobda physical injurydan protect qilish mumkin edi. Lekin musicianslar ularga ishi yo'q, qaramaydi. Ular qochadi bunaqa narsalardan dedi. Shuning uchun javob C. Hamma savollarga javoblarni berdik. Asosiy qismni circle qildik. Unga qo'shimcha qismlarni underline qildik. Bu qism qiyin bo'ldi. To'g'risi qiyin bo'ldi. Objectively men uchun ham ozgina oson bo'lmadi, e'tiborli bo'lishga harakat qildim. So'zlarni ham e'tibor bilan qarashga harakat qildim. Majbur bo'ldim. Bu qismda nima qilish kerak? Tushunmaslikdan aniq bir 70-80% odam tushunmasligi mumkin bu videoni ko'rayotgan. Nima qilasizlar? Anonga qarang, skriptga qarang, hammasini underline qilganman. O'sha so'zlarni yodlab oling, tushunishga harakat qiling, hammasini ma'nosini tushunib o'qing. Muammo bo'ladigan bo'lsa kommentlarda qoldiringlar. Shu bilan darsimiz o'z nihoyasiga yetadi. Bye bye.